Welcome to this chess lesson entitled Give Me Liberty and Give Me Space. You may know the famous saying, give me liberty or give me death. But if you want your chess pieces to survive on the chessboard, you must give them the liberty and the freedom to maneuver and the space to do that in. And so if we look at this position as an example, the pawns create a beautiful V and W formation. Maybe I should get Volkswagen to sponsor this video. But seriously, the white pawns create this V formation. And behind it, his pieces have all this extra room to maneuver in, giving them much more freedom of mobility. Whereas black's pieces are behind this W-shaped wall of pawns where his pieces are constricted and trapped and can barely move at all. And so what can white do to take advantage of this position with all this extra space? And how will black respond? And so I invite you to go over this game with me from the beginning to see how everything led up to this point and to see the conclusion of how white can break through using his extra space to his advantage. And so if we go back to the beginning of this game took place in Carlsbad in Czechoslovakia, 1929. The white pieces were played by the third world champion, Jose Capablanca. And with black, a Czechoslovakian master by the name of Karl Trebel. And so Capablanca begins with pawn to d4. His opponent responds with d5 and c4. Capablanca has played the Queen's Gambit. And in response to the Queen's Gambit opening, Trebel plays the Slav defense with pawn to c6. And the game continues with development. Knight to f3, pawn to e6, and the bishop moves out to g5, attacking the queen. Black blocks with his bishop, and white captures. A recapture by the queen, and further development. Knight to d2, and now pawn to f4. Black pushes forward with the f-pawn, gaining space on the king side. And now e3, the pawn moves forward, creating space for the white bishop to move off of the back rank. Knight move by black. The bishop emerges to d3. And now a strange move by black. Black has moved his knight to h6 on the edge of the board. Generally, a place where knights do not belong on the edge, as it limits their mobility. But black has a reason in moving here, and we will shortly find out why he did so. Castling by both sides. Further development with queen to c2. And now a pawn push by black. And rook to b1. A knight move and another knight move by white. Here, white has pushed his knight forward into an outpost square. Anytime you have the opportunity to do this, it is to your advantage, because the knight here is in a position where no pawns from black's forces can attack this knight. And it is hard to drive this knight away. It can only be attacked by pieces, which is why this knight moved to the edge of the board where it may jump back to this f7 square and challenge this great knight. The knight moves back, attacking this knight on the outpost, trying to remove it. And a pawn push by white, strengthening this central position, guarding the knight so that if the knight is captured now, the pawn may take towards the center, attacking black's knight and driving it away, and creating more space and room for this rook to maneuver up towards the king side. Bishop moves out, and now the second knight moves up to further strengthen the knight on the outpost, so that if the first knight is taken, the second knight may jump into this outpost. And now rook to d8, placing this rook in behind the d-pawn in case there are exchanges. It may further strengthen the center and help in the fight to come. And now white pushes forward on the queen side, gaining more space with the b-pawn. And here we see that this bishop, the bishop that has just moved back, is trapped in by its own pawns, because all of these pawns are the same color squares that the bishop must operate on. And in general, it is a bad idea to place all your pawns on the same square as your bishop, as your bishop may become trapped the way it is here. And in contrast to that, we see that white's bishop is on the opposite color of most of his pawns, especially in the center where his pawns are on the dark squares and white's bishop is on this lighter square. And now a rook move to further bolster the pushing of these pawns forward into black's position. Pawn move by black, and the queen moves to the f2 square to give it more ability to maneuver. From here it may push up to the h-file and potentially attack towards the king. And now the knight has captured white's knight on this fine outpost, but the second knight swoops in and goes back into the outpost. And now black attacks the knight once more. And here white retreats his knight because he does not want to trade this fine piece that was in black's position, and he wants to make sure by moving it back later in the game he may be able to put it back on that outpost. And rook moves to c8, preparing for a potential opening of this c-file. And white pushes forward with the pawn to c5, limiting the options that black has. And so black moves his knight over to the king side, being able to potentially move to e4 or g4. And white gains further space on the queen side with pawn to a4, knight to g4, attacking white's queen. The queen retreats, and the knight maneuvers some more. But now white has pushed a pawn, which prevents this knight from jumping back to g4 and harassing the king side for white. Another knight maneuver, and a pawn push by white, gaining space now on the king side. A pawn move, bishop move by black. Rook move, and the king maneuvers into the corner and white maneuvers his rook for a potential breakthrough after a pawn trade, heading up towards the king on the g file. And black counters by placing a rook on the g file as well. And then a pawn push by white up the g file to g5, creating more space for white. Queen maneuvering, another pawn push, a king move, and white gains more space, attacking the g-pawn with the h5 pawn move. Black slowly being constricted behind white's wall of pawns. He's just maneuvering back and forth, waiting to see what white will do next. And rook to the h file, a queen maneuver by black, another by white, queen maneuver again, and the king to f2. Some further maneuvering by both sides, and here white doubles up on the h file for a potential attack against the black king. Another rook move, queen maneuvering, and both sides try to decide where to press through. Queen maneuver, another rook move, and finally a pawn push on the queen side by white, and some exchanges. But before further exchanging, white pushes the h pawn up to h6, checking black's king, a fine move which will force the king up to f8, blocking in both of his rooks. And now white continues with a recapture of the pawn. And here, black moved king to e7, but had black tried to recapture by taking this b5 pawn, then we see a tricky maneuver where there would be a discovered check after this pawn push to c6. The queen would check black's king and attack his bishop at the same time, coming out ahead in material. And so in the game, instead of that, the king moved to e7, and white pushed forward to b6, attacking the queen, gaining further space on the queen side. And after this queen move, white doubles up on the a file. And here, as white's pawns have pushed so far up the board and constricted black's position, black just maneuvers back and forth, waiting to see what white will do next. And this move, a very good move by white, it prepares the way for the rooks to pile up on the a file and move forward and reposition the queen in behind the rooks, as we will see here shortly. Further maneuvering, and now the rook goes up to the 7th rank. It is always good to position your rooks on the 7th rank if possible, as usually your opponent will have pawns on that rank, as he does on b7 and h7, which may be attacked and targeted. And further maneuvering by black in his constricted position. And now the other rook prepares to maneuver from the h file over to the a file. A bishop move by black, and now the rooks have doubled up onto the a file. Maneuvering by black, and here this pawn moves forward to a4, which will allow the queen to maneuver in behind both rooks, forming the Alekhines gun, a position in which the two rooks are in front of the queen, and all three are lined up on a file, forming a type of cannon that will fire up the file, attacking the enemy position. King maneuvering by black, and the queen positions itself behind the rooks. Further maneuvering, and now further maneuvering by both sides, as black is constricted and just trying to wait and see what white will do, and white just maneuvers back and forth. And further maneuvering by both sides, playing a waiting game. And here, finally, white commences with his plan with knight to d2, where he will maneuver this knight from the king side over towards the queen side and up the board into black's position. And he will then use the bishop, the knight, and the rooks, along with the queen. All his pieces will converge up towards the queen side and into black's position, as we will see. And here, black just maneuvers his pieces back and forth as they are severely limited and cramped in this position. The knight heads up the board, further maneuvering by black, and now the knight is in position. Black moves his knight to defend, but it's too late. Bishop places itself under attack on the a6 file, a6 square, and here black has no choice. Black captures the bishop, but it's too late. Capture of black's bishop by the rook. Black tries desperately to defend, and the continuation of the game occurred like this. Capture, putting black in check, recapture, and the final move, knight moves to c6, forking queen, both rooks, and here black resigned. As further play, he would just be behind in material and struggle with a slow loss. And so I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, this game, and this example of how to use space to your advantage and slowly cramp and constrict your opponent, taking their space away and limiting the maneuverability of their pieces. And in the end, white is able to cramp and squeeze his opponent and win the game. And hopefully you'll be able to learn from this game and take some of these lessons and win some chess games by using these lessons. Thank you, and if you have enjoyed this, please hit the like button and subscribe, and please leave any comments on what you thought of this lesson or any ideas that you have on future lessons that I may give. Thank you very much and have a great day.